Go right ahead.
Thank you, Heather, and thank you, Yasser, and thank you everyone else for being here. Um, I like to think of these sessions that Kefah and I have been doing in MYFest both last summer or last August, I think it was, and this August as a kind of like building upon building blocks kind of thing. Kefah will share the screen because she's better at these things than I am. But
No, no,
at
no.
any
Last time I was like clicking too fast, so we'll see.
She will be our slide master. And of course, the two of us together will guide us through a lovely session about poetic practices. Last week, we talked about poetry and the human nature of writing from the lens of a poetic kind of vision of the world. Today, we want to follow up with a little bit of pragmatism in terms of practice and how we could all live in poetic practice. There are little tips, excuse me, little tips and little ways to live that we want to extend to you. So, Kifa, if you could bring up the slides, we can just jump right in. I think we, like almost like a little bit of an early disclaimer. I will, sorry. Oh, it says that I need to change the sharing rights. I thought I had that right, but oh, okay. I'll fix that in a second. But I will say that I lost my train of thought. What was I about to say? I forgot. Um, it's okay.
This is,
Go ahead, Heather. You were going to say something. Was it you? Or Kifa? Yeah, you were going to say something.
I was just gonna say you're talking about sharing practices.
Yeah, just that we wanted to make sure that whatever we were talking about in terms of inspiration and moving towards a poetic impulse could be grounded in I think there's an echo. Somebody maybe needs to mute. But that could be grounded in ways of living. And so that's what today is about, is exploring that together. So I will try to work on the rights, like so that the sharing model in the slides works. But for now, you can just follow along with the screen because we have it up. And Kifad, do you mind moving the slide to the next slide so I can?
Yes. Do you see the slide? It's not showing me the slides anymore.
Yes, we can see the slides. Are you having trouble seeing them?
Yeah, I can't. Okay, now I can see them. Okay.
Okay. I wonder, it must be a lag, just internet lag. So we just wanted to start off with kind of opening up metaphor once again. We often do this. We want to welcome everyone and use the chat just to share how you're feeling today. And we like the use of metaphor because it sort of gets us our poetic muscles moving in the right direction. So I have some examples of how you might describe yourself. This afternoon, I'm content like a content, or that's a simile, but I'm like a content cat in a sun patch, or this afternoon I'm a frozen lake. But if everyone can take a moment and share how they're feeling at this moment, that would be a nice way to start. I'll read what people have to say out loud. Okay, so I think it's Maho says I'm like one of those spinny things that doesn't know when it's going to stop spinning. I think that's called a top. You know that movie Inception, or what was it called? I think in the Jewish tradition, it's also called a dreidel, but it's like a top. Um, Maya says, I feel like an untied shoelace. Like that. Um, I mean, I'm laughing. Maybe it's not a funny one, but I, for some reason, receive it with a bit of humor. I think it's because I remember telling my sons to tie their shoelaces a lot when they were younger. Um, Amber says, this morning I'm moving the oh wait, I'm moving like the calm summer breeze. Wow, that's really nice. I love that one. I feel like a jellyfish just easily floating along. Excellent. Like I'm imagining just a sort of like the pumping mechanism of a mellow jellyfish. But a jellyfish can sting. Okay, Heather says, I'm an empty can lying on its side being, oh my God, being kicked down the street. That's kind of a bummer, Heather. I'm sending love to you. Uh, Vivian says, brack, brack, brack. Rachel says, I'm a climber, eyeing the summit. Okay, we're headed upward, even though it's hard. Heather, um, oh no, I read that already. Oh, okay, Heather's jet lagged. That's what that's about. And okay. Oh, a rooster. Vivian says a rooster or a chicken. I like the sounds. Okay, maybe we could move on to the next slide. That was kind of fun. And thank you everyone for sharing their state of being at the moment.
So
Is
I'll
it
start with
moving?
our intentions. Yeah, do you see the
Yeah.
intentions now?
The
You want,
screen can change. Oh, there we go. Okay. Go
okay, go ahead.
ahead. Uh,
So the way we wanted to set our intentions was really just the exploration of therapeutic and restorative poetry practices because I feel like they are so inherently connected. Discuss a little bit about poetry's ability to create the intentional pause, which we kind of touched upon last session that we had.
mhm,
Noticing details, the creation of metaphor, and really treating words as meditation.
mhm,
Also, joy-centered writing, because when we're processing grief and other heavy emotions, we really want to take a moment to also center joy, to cultivate that imaginative and harness hope, because without one, the other really can be a little bit dark, and we want to be able to foster that joy in our lives and also kind of spread it in the spaces that we are in
mhm,
and try to create a balance for well-being and cultivating creativity. Uh, and I feel like whenever we discuss poetry, I always think that it's so different from any other structured writing when it comes to prose, whether it's fiction or nonfiction. The creation of symbols that really comes back to the writer and creating
mhm,
an image or a feeling and bringing themselves back into that moment, which I
mhm,
feel like that is the perfect medium because you really have to step outside the present to also regain a sense of presence. It helps us tap into the unconscious that sometimes we're holding on to, but it's not on the top of our minds. Um, so back to that intentional pause, really reclaiming our consciousness and all the things that are happening and affecting us that we're really not paying attention to, and perhaps understanding why we might not be paying attention and what we do need to be paying attention to that we're kind of like dismissive of. Um, I also wanted to invite a small meditation practice. I like this one because in Islam, we believe that smiling is a form of charity. And so when I saw this practice, I thought this is so amazing because intuitively, you think that smiling is just something you do and it's not even a big deal. But this was actually based on research. They found that people who did this practice had elevated levels of, or their levels of anxiety decreased and levels of depression were decreased. So I'm going to just walk us through this tiny practice. So it starts off with just settling in, finding a comfortable seat to rest your hands gently, soften your gaze and close your eyes. Taking a few slow, deep breaths in through the nose, out through the mouth, relaxing your face, jaw, and neck, and allowing for a gentle smile to form. Let it be soft, effortless, um, forming at the corners of your mouth, thinking of something that makes you smile or someone that makes you smile. Turn the smile inward, Imagine that smile radiating inside your body, through your face, your throat, and chest. Send the smile through your body. With every breath, guide the smile to your heart, your lungs, digestive system, spine, and acknowledging and appreciating each part of you. The smile spread throughout your whole body. Take one final deep breath, slowly opening your eyes, and then try to carry that smile with you for the rest of the day.
I love that. I think we can skip this next slide because I think it's a little bit redundant, but we also wanted to have for you a notion that there's meditations online, some better than others, but I enjoy visual meditations, ones in which it's just 5 minutes or 10 minutes, where there's a kind of voice in your ear that guides you with prompts that help you move through your internal life with intention just for the short period of time. It's such a profound grounding practice. And I myself try to, most days, do this. I even feel like it's a little bit like a prayer, because in setting an intention, it's also tapping into what is sacred and divine inside you and what you perceive as such in the world before you. So we're not going to play the meditation because Ifa just walked us through a beautiful one. But in the slides, there are meditations, and this particular website called Great Meditation is useful if you're looking for visualization meditations like the one I described. You can go to the next slide, though.
Just listing some core practices for mindful restorative writing. Some of these will feel intuitive, and it's a good reminder just to keep them in the back of our minds, because writing should, in essence, be restorative. So think about finding your moment. Notice the time of day when you feel closest to yourself. It might be early morning before the world wakes up, another quiet pocket of time. For me, it's always morning before my kids wake up, like before the storm happens and I'm needed everywhere else in the world. But really, a time when your thoughts are unfiltered and your heart is really just open and you have a sense of self. Set the scene, create an atmosphere that supports you, whether that's putting music on that inspires your mood or inspires imagination. It can be soft and inviting, something that's not distracting, but just enough to signal your body that this is a really precious and sacred moment. Think about the tools you want to use, something that feels natural to you. I'm a paper and pen, notebook, smelling my pages kind of person, but for some of us, it's just a scrap piece of paper, a napkin, laptop journal. Really, the format is essential to whatever feels natural to you. Um, Try to write without interruption, whether that's setting a timer for 5 to 10 minutes, and just allow yourself to feel your thoughts freely, let your fingers move freely. Don't stop to edit. Don't worry about making sense. Just see what comes out of you naturally in those moments that feel sacred. And then welcome the unsaid, which I think is hard for a lot of us. Just allow what's being hidden, half formed, or even surprising that may emerge, and let it be what it is. Whatever the timer ends, don't rush to interpret it, don't fix it. Just know that you've made contact with an inner part of yourself, let it be real, and that is enough for that restorative practice. A lot of these, I learned from you, the don't edit anything, just write.
Let it
And
be.
I just carry it with me all the time, and it's one of the
Mhm.
most useful practices in writing for me.
Yeah, just let it be. This slide has an image of a forest, but a pathway within the forest with a bit of light in the center. So it's almost like there's a kind of welcome direction to go, which is towards nature. Um, I wanted to talk for a few moments about the importance of walking. And I've said this in other sessions before, but to me, the practice of walking is connected to living in a poetic way. The woods, nature itself, opens itself to what is wonderful in the world. And I'm using that word intentionally with underlining of wonder. Wonder is an experience of awe, and nature is our most accessible, kind of immediate place to discover that sense of wonder in the world, especially when the world is so unrelentingly disappointing and discouraging. There's just something about noticing the rings of a stump of a tree or the shape of a leaf or the light coming through the forest that can help you heal on some level. So often I use walks. Well, it's a daily practice for me just to recuperate a bit. It's also good for you in the holistic and health sense. But besides that, I also want to point out that it opens up the poetic spirit within us. I often take my students on walks, and I also love to use the turn of phrase, walk with me in my work life. So I might feel a little bit of a antsy feeling because I have a class coming up and I just had an annoying committee meeting or something like that. And someone comes to my office that wants to talk to me, maybe an impromptu meeting, and I always kind of lean into the walk with me. And I just walk out the door of my office and into the wide world, sometimes go outside, sometimes just go around the hallway, but I like to move and think while moving. So there's something about pacing, about being in touch with your body, stretching. And in this slide, you'll see that there's a bunch of kind of prompts here that I often use that are associated with walks. I think about chosen paths, pathways, both metaphorically and literally. I think about what helps us think. And sometimes photography is a really powerful part of reflection, and that comes about during a walk as well. You'll notice something on a walk that you might not notice if you were just rushing to the office or something. But if you're intentionally taking a walk, you see things differently. And so I just wanted to pause in this moment in our conversation today to emphasize the power of the walk. But Kifa, you could keep going. Next slide.
Okay, so one of the practices that I came across that I find really intriguing and useful and beneficial, and I kind of just named it myself, a mindful poetic pause. I don't think it's called that, but I've just morphed this name. Similar to the way we started before, this practice would require you to settle into your body and reflect on where you want more clarity and ease in your life, going with the breathing deeply, filling your belly and with each inhale. And the practice will focus on fears, doubts, and stresses, which are not easy conversations, but are important to take some time and pay attention to. Um, Not with the intention of lingering in them, but committing to letting them go. And so there's a list of phrases that you would read, and I'll read them now. And then the practice asks you to choose one that resonates with you the most, write it down on a sticky note, and carry it with you throughout the day. So I'm going to read them, and then I'll tell you the rest of the directions for the exercise. So you're thinking of the phrase that resonates the most and commit to letting it go. So in the presence of fear, I will make space for courage. In the presence of self-doubt, I will make space for self-belief. In the presence of feeling hurried, I will make space for slowing down. In the presence of overwhelm, I will make space for rest. In the presence of overthinking, I will make space for letting go. In the presence of chaos, I will make space for inner peace. In the presence of confusion, I will make space for clarity. In the presence of pain, I will make space for self-compassion. So throughout the day, having one of these on a sticky note, whether it's on top of your laptop or somewhere that's visible to you, try to pay attention when you see it and reread it, where is the shift occurring? Did you pause and give yourself more grace? And think of all the ways that it made space for yourself to unclench. Because I feel like throughout the day, we're just like clenched and doing the everyday things. How did it help you pause and honor yourself? Another one is called Ruins and Foundations Integration. This practice would start with, it's a short practice because I'm always thinking like a teacher, like we're always running out of time. But for the first half, you would write about something in your life that has collapsed. It could be a relationship, a belief you had, some plans that you had. What's important is to be honest and specific. It's not always easy to admit the collapse that we have in our lives, but the recognition of it as something to build upon is important. So for the second half, you would imagine using fragments of the thing that has collapsed and to build something new. It doesn't have to be better, but transform. And describe to yourself what that new structure would look like or feel like. Um, the reason that I included this is because we talk often about imagining the imaginative aspects of hope and thinking beyond the present moment. And when the world gets heavy, this becomes really, really crucial to our well being. One, to acknowledge the loss that we're feeling, but also to reconstruct imaginatively, which also fosters resilience. Also, a lot of these come from practices used in mental health practices, but also in um, the science and medical field, where they were used on participants that varied in age from adolescents who were struggling with bipolar disorder to cancer patients. So a lot of these were implemented in actual medical studies. A prompt to begin this could be, "It fell apart when," and then the foundation prompt could be, "From the rubble I shaped." Really just the acknowledgement and then the restoration in a positive, transformative way. Another practice is the dialogue with self from estrangement and reconciliation. I love this one because it really does make me step outside of myself and all the versions of myself that I have to kind of balance the public self and the self I rarely show. So maybe that's the mom self that's at home and then my professional self, and really engaging the two selves in a dialogue where you are actually looking at two parts of you as characters and allowing the voices to have a conversation. The conversation could be about how one needs the other, how one is mad at the other, and really take on the characteristics as if they're two separate voices. It's a nice way to end this practice is with having the two voices and with asking each other a question or revealing a truth. Um, this is again restorative because it talks externally where you are looking from the outside in and helps you, one, reclaim parts of yourself that you're not really cognizant that you have so many parts of yourselves, bring yourself back into that idea that I have so many features that are visible and not visible, and then kind of externalizing an internal conflict. Positive event amplification. I love this one because it takes a small moment that, well, it's a big moment or a small moment. It could be something as big as a graduation, winning an award, or even a kind gesture, like a perfect cup of coffee, and really slowing down that moment with intention to relive it and bring it into the present tense to re-immerse yourself in joy and using it as a joy anchor. And I believe that even remembering small gestures are equally as impactful as the big. Um, Remembering human kindness, like someone opening a door and making that an anchor for joy, really helps assert positive emotions, but also reassert our faith in humanity and the kindness of others. I'm gonna skip this one, so for just timing, because I'm being mindful of timing, but it is here. for anyone to come back to the slides. There are a few of these. Um, I'm going to skip the ritual as well, but this is a beautiful one that I engage in with my students because it makes them laugh all the time at me, usually. um, and then one last one that I'll talk about, and then Mia, I'll move forward with yours. The poetry response circle. Um, One thing that I feel slows us down is also reading poetry intentionally, having a short poem, whether that's something published or shared, similar to the author's chair that Dr. Zamora does in Writer's Retreat. But read it twice out loud. And then after the first reading, ask the participants to share a single word or image that resonates. And then after the second reading, invite a short written response that is inspired the poem. So it's taking one poetic piece and then extrapolating it into how we also build meaning around it. All right, Mia.
Okay, I'm struggling with the slide and the fact that we don't have Google any longer, but I'll fix that later. We are skipping over slides because of time constraints, but there's so many great practices here that we just want to have everyone have access to. So for sure, we will have these slides uploaded in the MyFest website, and I'm going to send the slides to the MyFest team so that it can be translated into the Google context. So I just wanted to make the point that at this point in time, there is a very literal push to take away our rest. It's part of the design of the world now. Algorithmic logic is sort of grabbing at our capacity to pay attention. It's literally grabbing our attention, so when we're often scrolling in a way that's numbing, and the media headlines and the reality of the world out there is so disheartening. It's very hard to rest in this world we share together. And so the point I just wanted to simply make here is that part of living poetically is being able to dream. And a key element of dreaming is rest. So we must always remember that rest is our power and that we need to carve out spaces for it. We need rest because it is a part of our ability to refigure our world, to rethink our world anew in our own terms. And resting, which is connected to dreaming, is also about recharging in order to live in it. So when we literally go to sleep, our brain restores, recharges, and helps us move forward. And that's a very important part of what we believe is poetic practice alive in everyday life. Could you move the slide forward, Kifa? I think we wanted to take a moment to talk about the practice of journaling in our lives. Do you want to say a few things before we go to the spiral journal? Because we're going to journal together for a few minutes.
For the spiral journaling, it's just something that I learned from you, Mia. So many of what I do, and I'm so always inspired by you, but it's a practice that I use every single year in all of my classes. And every year, my students are so affected by it. It has such a strong impact on them that later on in the year they come and they ask me to redo it with them. I always choose it during like high tension moments, whether that's right before midterms, right after midterms, SATs. And I kind of just position it in a place where I know they are so stressed about, the conditions of our life and the expectations. And it always makes them pause. And it's not a pause they always invite welcomingly, but they do appreciate it. The only tweak that I do to the spiral journaling is that I give them the option to read it, share it, or read it with me, or stand over the garbage can and rip it up. So that's the only slight modification to that I do.
If everyone, go ahead and
No, let me,
talk
no,
about
go ahead.
I was going to say if everyone could grab any piece of paper, just a simple piece of paper, we're going to do a writing exercise now and give you all a moment to write But basically it doesn't have to be a fancy piece of paper, any paper. We're going to fold it twice so that there are four quadrants on the paper. And before we start the spiral journal, Kifa, you want to talk about the cards, the poetic cards? They're so wonderful. And she drew this to my attention when we were planning for today. And I just love these cards. So tell everyone about the cool cards.
These are reflection cards. They're by a company called Holisty. I actually just like stumbled upon them while just like getting ready for the year a few years ago, but they've been so impactful in my costume that we just reuse them. So they are thematic based, and the intention is to create deep conversations. For my class, we don't discuss them, students just write them, but every color represents a theme. And the way they are designed is that the white section is meant for, it's like a lighter question, ice-breaking kind of question. And so students write the first top half of that question. I do it kind of, I never let my students choose. I don't know why, but I always think it's funny to watch them squirm a little bit. And I'm always like, no, you can't choose. So they end up sometimes trading with each other. So here's a sample of one of the questions, the icebreaker kind of question. Who was your first true friend and what brought you together? And the theme of this is intention. And then the deeper question, once they've written about that light icebreaker question, how did you or will you know when you're in love, which requires a little bit more thinking. High school students surprisingly really like this question a lot. So that's why I have them here actually. And the next card, the theme of that purple color, the theme represents reflection. The icebreaker question on top is, what is one magical memory from the past year? And I love this one. This is actually my favorite card. And then the deeper question is, how have your spiritual views changed in the last decade? So really the intention of these cards is to really focus in on a deeper part of you, to connect with something deeper. And I like the ease into the deeper question because it always helps students just kind of brainstorm.
Yeah, I like that level effect too, is that there's a like a first dimension and then a deeper dimension of the same thematic. I think that's very powerful. So we're going to spiral journal now. Again, this requires a piece of paper and a writing instrument of one form or another, pen, pencil. I hope you have one. If you don't, now's the moment that you can get up and get it. And we're going to take, about 10 minutes or so to go through this spiral journal. It has, or a little less maybe. But if somebody is curious about it, first of all, there's an image on the screen of an octopus. Maha and I have actually been thinking about octopi lately, and they're magical creatures in this world, hyper intelligent, but so adaptable to the world. And they sense things and transform through meeting the world in very powerful ways. So I love the octopi there. And there's also just letters and an image of a tree, all drawn by Linda Barry. And this whole spiral journal was inspired by her. But this is a practice that calmly prepares you for the work ahead, whatever work that might be in your life, while sharpening your observational precision. So hopefully now you have a piece of paper, and we'll go to the first slide in the spiral journal and the first step in creating the journal. I want you to take that piece of paper and fold it once and then fold it twice so that you end up with four quadrants on the piece of paper, basically representing four boxes that you will be writing in, and you will be writing as a free write. So basically, what that means is that there's no parameters and it's stream of consciousness, just flow, whatever comes to mind, you can doodle in it. Anything is okay. It is for you. But the whole process is about loosening up your subconscious and bringing forth whatever is in you. So I'd like for everyone to put their writing utensil, pen or pencil, in the very center of the paper and start to draw a small and very tight spiral from the center. So you want to keep the spiral small because you're drawing a very tight spiral. And let's do that for 1 minute's time. Okay. So that's the 1 minute mark. Now, in the next slide, you see that there's a prompt and you will be writing in that free write way, meaning just stream of consciousness. And you have two kind of prompts to respond to. The first part is right now my body feels, and then you write what it's feeling. And then you want to pick up on the second part of the prompt, which is this feeling tells me that. So right now my body feels, and I'm going to set the timer for 1 minute and 30 seconds. Remember to pick up on this feeling tells me that. Okay. So now we're going to the top right quadrant and the next slide where we'll see the next prompt. The rituals that have helped weave my life together include, and then you just free write. The rituals that have helped weave my life together include, I'm giving you 1 minute and 30 seconds. Okay. So now we're going to move on to the bottom right quadrant. And the prompt is, what is sacred to me includes. What is sacred to me includes. Okay. So the last quadrant at the bottom left-hand side, our last prompt. A divine seed of hope that lives inside me is. A divine seed of hope that lives inside me is. Okay. So the final stages of the journal include reviewing it just for a minute, like taking a look at what actually came out, what surfaced, and then underlining or circling anything that stands out. So I'll just give you a little bit of time to do that. Okay. Hopefully you notice some things in yourself in the reflective writing. Um, and then the final slide asks us to consider sharing one insight by chat or by just unmuting anything that might have stood out to you at this moment. And I just want to say, if, of course, this is not prescriptive. No one has to share anything if they don't want to. The other thing is what you underline or you circle might not be what you choose to share. It might be something else. But if anyone would like to share, please share it in the chat or just unmute, and that would be nice. Does anyone want to share anything, or should we move on to the next slide? It's okay otherwise. Kifa, you want to maybe advance the slide? Oh, Amber said something in the chat. I notice in my rituals many glimmers that make my days better, like a warm cup of tea or coffee, or savoring the smell of rain, or stepping on crunchy leaves. It's nice to take note of them. Yeah, I think that whole that pause is really important. Of course, it's also a practice of gratitude that's embedded. The small things add up and give us a sense of, yeah, glimmers, the glimmers in everyday life. I love that, the idea of glimmers. These small moments that where our gratitude is rooted or lives is a really important part of our well-being on some level, and being aware and intentional around glimmers, they make us, our poetic hearts, kind of open up further. Ava says, for the ritual section, I found, sorry, I have to move something to be able to see everything. Something's in the way. I don't know. I found something about things we maybe don't think about every day, like waking up in the morning and falling asleep at night. Yeah, so there's again, it's like that embedded gratitude in the way we live each day. And I think that's beautiful. Um, Also, I like those, like the pause moments of waking up or falling asleep are kind of sacred things. And we've been giving that stuff away, guys. What I mean by that is we have, those phones have been messing us up. I know I'm not the only one. That's why I say it like this, meaning the interference of our mindscape in the last thing before we fall asleep is just looking at something disheartening or not disheartening on our phones, or when we wake up, grabbing for that phone and immediately putting our consciousness into the framework, the infrastructure of the internet. That is like snuffing life out of us. If we just paused and thought about what we're thinking about, if we inserted those pauses for ourselves, I think we might be able to tap into things like our imagination, like our intention, and ultimately our health as well. This slide is just almost like a prompt question, and anyone can sort of jump in and express what they might be thinking. But I've been lately thinking about this idea of sacred economies. You know, Here's the question: can we move closer to justice by giving what feels sacred inside of us to the world? And how do we prime ourselves to be able to do that? How do we build capacity to be able to do that? It's obvious to me that there's a design on the world that's literally extracting that possibility from us. We're not primed to know what feels sacred inside us, let alone pause and be intentional about how we might give it to the world. So I want to just say that question out loud again and invite you to comment on it or think out loud with me. And it's okay if no one wants to say anything too. But is there some possibility of building sacred economies amongst us? Can we move closer to justice just by giving what feels sacred inside of ourselves to the world itself?
I think the world sometimes is just our intimate communities and societies, right? Like, I think when we see the word justice, the dream is for justice everywhere for everyone, which feels overwhelming because we feel like I can't possibly do that a huge thing. And then I think of the locus of control that we have in our everyday lives, whether it's with family, students, loved ones, and what can I give to those people directly affected by me that they can carry on in their lives that will make their lives somehow better or the lives of the people around them better, that continuum of good.
Yes, I was just reading the chat and then I lost it, so I'm going to go back to it now because there were some nice things in there. What happened? I ended up losing it. Oh, main chat. There we go. Okay, back to the chat. Um, yeah, so Viv was sort of reacting to the oxymoron embedded in the question itself. This notion of economy, it's so tied up, obviously, in markets and systems of exchange, and that being the first and foremost sort of order of the painful world that we share together. And then the word sacred, which is obviously a kind of pointing towards the spiritual realm and things that rise above transactionalism, etc. Yes, it was an intentional juxtaposition, and I know Viv knows that too. And absolutely, it was meant as an anti-capitalist gesture, just in terms of an invitation to think. And Yasser also said that he liked the idea of bringing the question of justice in the conversation. That was something very important to me. I definitely want to both Kifa and I, is that we want there to be this notion of we can live by a poetic impulse and we can heal ourselves in little ways each day by pacing ourselves in the spirit of poetry. We're offering up like small practices for that, but ultimately there's a reason for it, not just one that is, it starts with well-being internally, but it's of course connected to an aspiration for the world to be a better place. And so hence that's where my question comes in, or our question to all of you. I see that Amber writes in, it makes me think of modeling, that sometimes we need to see others honoring sacred rituals to feel more comfortable doing them ourselves. Absolutely. I really love that actually. Like just to know that it might be okay to bring something that's sacred to us to others, even if that isn't their tradition, to expand. Like, for instance, as someone who isn't Muslim, raised in a Christian tradition, to hear about the meditation and the prayer rooted within the smile, to me, that's a gift I received that I can, extend outward. And it's rooted in sacred ritual, sacred prayer, but it also is something that can be shared. So that's a beautiful thing to point to, Amber. Thank you. So at any rate, maybe we can just end with the last few slides, Kifa. I just wanted to read a poem. This one, I think, is accessible to all. And in regards to that idea of seeds of hope that live in all of us, I thought that this poem was accessible. And this idea of knowing and sensing and feeling has to come first in order for us to heal ourselves and also be able to reach for a better world. So, Wild Geese by Mary Oliver. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert, repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about despair, yours, and I will tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of the rain are moving across the landscapes, over prairies and the deep trees, the mountains and the rivers. Meanwhile, the wild geese, high in the clean blue air, are heading home again. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely the world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over, announcing your place in the family of things.
Beautiful.
So the last slide, I think, has some resources for everyone. And again, we will make sure that these slides are on the MyFest site so that everyone can grab at these. I think they might be useful in everyday life practice and maybe in teaching as well.
A lot of the prompts that we saw early in practices are a combination of all of the resources here. Some I modified a little bit, some come directly from the book and from the website of Equity Unbound, and then, of course, the reflection cards.
Anyway, we hope that everyone has a good day, a good week, a good evening. Somewhere there might be a good morning. And I'll acknowledge it's an ugly time out there, and we need each other to fortify each other. And don't forget poetic practices to heal your soul in little ways. It will somehow connect to justice too, if we dream big.
Thank you so much for everyone who joined and gave us parts of themselves in the comment section. And I don't think, by the way, I was thinking when you were talking earlier, I don't think that well-being can be divorced from justice. I think
It
they
never
are intrinsically tied because if you understand justice and what justice means, you understand that to be whole, you want others to be whole as well. So they are completely married in my sense of justice.
ditto.
Thank you, Kiva and Mia. Thank you so much for this lovely session.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for sharing it with us.
I'm going to stop the recording.